con questo ritmo forsennato e velocissimo di incontri, ma ci piace, e parliamo con grande piacere con Guy Cassiers e Dirk Roofthooft. Come si pronuncia? How do you pronounce your surname? I'm sorry.
Dirk Roofthooft.
Okay. I won't say it again.
Thank you.
Abbiamo visto lo spettacolo ieri sera ed è bello notare vicinanze, assonanze, differenze tra il lavoro che abbiamo visto di Woje di Mouawad e quello che l'ha seguito. Un altro monologo che scava duramente nella memoria. Mi provo anche qui a raccontare velocissimamente il percorso artistico di un maestro della regia come Guy Cassiers. Alcuni lo collocano in quello che Lehmann ha chiamato il teatro post-drammatico. Sicuramente una caratteristica possibile, un teatro che ha una forza e che ha capacità di unire, tant'è che Guy Cassiers ama definirsi un DJ, no? Ama unire elementi diversi, metterli sullo stesso piano contemporaneamente, quasi con una compilation, una playlist di un DJ appunto. Usa liberamente strutture, codici, media diversi, teatro, ovviamente tecnologia, di cui sicuramente parleremo, video, no? Avete visto l'uso interessante del video, che è un elemento che non crea distanza, ma anzi amplifica l'intimità, fa entrare ancora di più lo spettatore nel mondo di questo personaggio. Guy Cassiers ha recentemente frequentato l'Italia per una straordinaria edizione del Ring wagneriano alla Scala, ma nel suo percorso artistico ha lavorato spesso per cicli che attraversano grandi autori, da Proust a Musil, a tanti altri, e che ha, scusate c'è un allarme, e che traduce, che riporta sulla scena. Il suo lavoro è molto attento al romanzo, alla letteratura, più che alla drammaturgia vera e propria. E in questi attraversamenti lavora spesso con il suo attore, come si dice, il suo attore feticcio, il suo attore di riferimento, Dirk, il cognome non lo dico, mi scuserete, che si assume questa recitazione, questo stile di recitazione così assolutamente vicino, intimo, personale, eppure al tempo stesso esplosivo. Allora sono tante anche in questo caso le domande che vorrò fare ai nostri due amici, a partire dal fatto appunto che questi spettacoli sono sempre costantemente segnati da un'attenta riflessione sul politico, su che cos'è la politica. Addirittura è stata fatta una trilogia proprio dedicata al potere. La prima domanda allora è, partendo da questo romanzo, dall'adattamento di questo romanzo come esempio, la prima domanda è proprio qual è il percorso creativo, come normalmente lavorate, portando tutta questa complessità di segni, codici e stili all'interno della scena.
Good afternoon. A project like Sunken Red cannot start, it can start from one person, but it cannot develop out of one person. So there are always a lot of elements that have to come together before a project can really develop itself. So there is, of course, the text that I've read, and the person next to me, Dirk, who I know, and it was out of the combination of the text and the person that I thought this was a project that had to be developed. At the same time, when you think about making a performance, the way why I'm in theater is not only that I want to express things that are important to me and that I think more people have to start to get to know it better. At the same time, it's for me, why I'm in theater is that I need to meet people, and every performance needs to have a development for myself and for the artists involved. And that's why after convincing Dirk that this might be, it wasn't so difficult to convince Dirk for this project to start developing this. At the same time, we need to have a group of artists around the table who each have their own special force, their own special abilities and responsibility. At the same time, during the process, we don't talk about those responsibilities. If a process works out well, then we share everything. Thank you. We share everything, and if everything functions ideally right, we don't have to talk about responsibilities at all. We see what's necessary. Very simply said, a process like Sunken Red tries to tell the story throughout every discipline. It tries to tell the whole story in the beginning. So the preparation of the project, there is always a lot of talks and preparations before the actual rehearsals start. So the playground that we offer Dirk, and that Dirk also develops himself, is already there from the first day of rehearsal. The technicians, who I like to express also as artists, they are all sharing the same time in the same period, so that everything that happens in one rehearsal responds to the next day. What Dirk does will affect the music. What the music does will affect Dirk. This is one example, but for all the disciplines involved in one show, there are people behind that from the very first day generate a dialogue. My function as a director is that I know exactly what the performance could become before the rehearsal starts. I'm pretty sure if that would be the final result of those 2 months of work, it would be a very bad show. Not because that my ideas are bad, but then it means that nothing has happened during those 2 months of rehearsal. And for me, the reason why I'm in theater is to not only to help other people understand certain things, it's also my need to learn during the process. Try to understand from different angles what the text now of Jeroen Brouwers, what it means, and from which angles you can look at it at the same time. And therefore, during the process, all the disciplines we scrap. Most of the work we do is not what do we need to add, is more what we don't need to tell. And the beauty of theater is that like, for instance, a performance like Sunken Red is that finally Dirk, in center of the stage, becomes the master of ceremony, not only for the role he performs and how he creates the character, but he's responsible also of guiding all the people in the back of the stage, all the technicians. For me, it's more like when I listen to jazz, you see there are a lot of elements that are fixed, a lot of agreements that have been said before, and at the same time, there is that possibility to make every moment unique. And that's what we are looking for every night, to find the right balance between those elements that you can rely on to, but still to make every evening unique. That's very short, some elements.
No, è anche... Sono già molto interessanti e ricchi di spunti. Però vorrei fare un passo indietro, ripartire dall'inizio del vostro percorso. Cioè come siete arrivati a questa idea di lavoro comune, di progettualità comune? Qual è stato il vostro approccio al teatro?
Maybe I have to ask my approach to the theater for this performance, or
No, for you.
From the very beginning.
Yes, if you don't mind.
No. Then we go back a few years ago. I'm an autodidact. I never studied theater. I was in an art school, and I didn't know what to do with my life. I mainly didn't, although I think language is the most beautiful thing that ever has been given to mankind. At the same time, I know that language is not my force. I don't think, I say it differently, I think there are so many beautiful things said that I could never say that well. So therefore, theater was for me a way to educate myself, trying to understand things that I read that were very important, that I could feel that they had a certain necessity. I gave myself the time to understand them better, and at the end communicate about that understanding. So when I was in school, after the many parties we organized, we thought we had to do some other stuff, do some more important things in life, and the only way to with people from my own age to find a way to find an intensive dialogue was sharing different disciplines with each other through what was then called performance. It was the 80s. We didn't want we didn't want to do. Oh, my English is getting worse and worse. We try to fight against everything that had subventions. We didn't believe in it. It was the 80s, so the youth of that moment was reacting. They didn't know what they want, but they were sure against everything that was there at the moment. It was a very self-indulgent, rich moment that Europe was facing at that time. So we were quite luxurious young kids who didn't feel the need to be part. And through the art schools, we found each other in saying what we didn't want. That gave us time. That gave us also in Antwerp, also Jan Lauwers was from Niet Company, was a person from the same age. We were all, Dirk was there, Jan Fabre was there. It was a moment that everybody tried to find an expression for their behaviors, not in the theater, but on locations, because there was no money. We didn't feel the need to have any money, so we made projects on different spaces, and we went to look at each other's work. We hated each other's work, but it gave us a lot of confidence or strength to develop our own work. And from that moment on, the idea of dialogue has stayed very, very important. From those first projects with no money at all for 5 years, I went to do children's theater because every 2-3 years I make a performance for children because it's healthy for me to keep realizing. For me, children are the most wonderful audience you can play for. Why? Because they are honest, and at the same time they don't have a world that's completely fixed. And they are sitting in the audience very eager to learn, and they say when they don't like it immediately. For me, that puts me every few years that I make a performance, it puts me on the ground, it keeps me realizing also what a spectator really needs to have. That is, that he has to come to the theater with an open mind, that he has to ask questions, that he doesn't have to be dat hij niet overtuigd moet worden van zijn eigen.
That the spectator doesn't have to be convinced of what he's thinking about his inside of life or things or circumstances.
That a lot of theater that's being made is to confirm that what the audience thinks he knows. And the work we try to do is ask questions in a way that hopefully it can develop you as a person. It's as simple as that.
Vorrei parlare tra poco dello spettatore, chiedendo anche a Dirk ovviamente qual è il suo rapporto con il pubblico, ma vorrei tornare appunto a questo percorso per grandi cicli, per lunghi attraversamenti dell'opera di un autore. Avete affrontato i grandi capisaldi della letteratura occidentale. Perché questa scelta e perché questo sguardo costante al libro, al romanzo, quasi più che alla drammaturgia?
I think in the way how I think through images. That's my education that still points me in a certain direction. So when I read a novel, I see a lot, I hear a lot, I smell everything, I open up all my senses. For me, there has been wonderful theater plays in repertoire that are written that needs to be played every year again and again. So I'm not against the material of the classic theater repertoire. But I think the way today that a novel can be as good as material to start from to make a theater performance as a theater play. For me, myself, when I read Beckett, which I like a lot, when I'm not only reading Beckett, I also feel the director Beckett, leaning over my shoulder, telling me what to do. and I don't think I can do it as good as Beckett, how he would direct his own performances. It's so clear in what needs to be done there that for me, I don't feel the necessity to make a production about his work. Although we did something small together also about his work. The way how classical theater was built up, we don't have to start from 3 acts. Why? Because we think completely different of what a set today has to be. There needed to be 3 acts to be able to move the set around. The way how Shakespeare wrote his text, they didn't have a set. So he had to explain everything through language to be able for the audience to understand what was happening in front of their eyes. So for me, it doesn't mean that therefore Shakespeare is a bad writer today, or we shouldn't do his work. But for me, it's the way how a novel and the influence of all, let's say, television, movies, cartoons, the whole art world, how we now read things, can experience a movement. For me, that's what I can find in a novel. The main importance is the content you start from. What is important now, today, to tell? And all the rest, the form you put it in, that is something I think we are very the spectator as an artist has developed so much in the last 40 years in what languages he can figure out, or how he can point out all let's say if the influence of movies in comparison with theater is that in a movie all the disciplines try to support each other. When you see a car passing by, you hear a car passing by. I think what the beauty of theater is when you hear a car passing by, you have the ability as a spectator, when it's a good show, to see the car as well, without needing the image of the car. And that's what I like to do in theater, is offer the ear those elements that you can see things, offer the eye elements that you can hear elements, so that finally the Gesamtkunstwerk, to talk in reference of Richard Wagner, that the whole Gesamtkunstwerk takes place in the eye of the beholder, the spectator has to be the final artist who brings the painting together.
Tra l'altro, citando Beckett, mi sembrava molto che mi sembrava di ritrovarlo molto all'inizio dello spettacolo di ieri sera, no? In questa azione di pulirsi i piedi, di lavorare, mi sembra l'ultimo nastro di Krapp, no? L'entrata appunto di Krapp. E volevo chiedere appunto a Dirk Roofthooft qual è l'approccio attorale in questo lavoro di gruppo, in questo pensare per immagini che vi contraddistingue, qual è l'approccio attorale, qual è il ruolo dell'attore e che tipo di recitazione viene richiesto per questo tipo di teatro.
To be honest, I would not know. Working with Guy is now, well, we know each other for 30 years, and this is maybe the only or already the 5th or the 6th collaboration in 30 years. So that is, let's say, an average of once in 5 years, 6 years, which is not all the time, but at the same time, even while not working during 5 or 6, 7 years, there is still a language going on between us, a friendship, a sharing of thoughts, a feeling of each other. While when I see his performances in where I'm not playing, I follow him everywhere. I follow everything he does. So it's also a question of love, I think, which as a consequent trust. I think there's a big trust in each other, at least, no, in each other, but surely from me in him, which gives me, when you say about how do you approach your acting, gives me a natural state of mind on stage, and I really mean on stage, whatever is on stage. If there are 5 video screens or only 2, if there is a sound of a car or only the image of a car, I trust Guy enormously in what he sees. And also, I'm also an actor that is very much aware that I can never, but never ever see what I'm doing on stage. I need the opinion and the view and the eyes of a person who looks at me from the morning till the evening, and to see and to hear what he sees. Also his remarks yesterday after the show, he saw it for the first time in a year. I need that, and it feeds me. And a system, a technique, I think we created together a natural way of being off stage, which has a consequence on stage. It's not that I want to... also, what I like a lot about Guy is these videos and this sound amplifying, which I don't feel even the microphone anymore. I'm really not feeling that there is something on my skin. It's my world, and what I like also in Guy's performance is that I can show my back, can show the side of my body, but also the side of my opinion, so I don't have to play. The image of the car is very good, but also the image of a sentence. I don't have to play, or I don't have to mean or express what I say. I can really express something else, because there are a lot of things around me that help me create a different point of views on every individual sentence, on every individual word, on every individual feeling, on every individual color. I know that together with the technicians, with everything, we got different point of views all the time. And I'm only just one color of this big painting.
I think, talking about colors, I think it's not only one color Dirk is. I think he's a few colors in the whole scale of this performance. When you do a performance like this, the weight on the shoulders of the actor is huge, because like I said in the beginning, Dirk isn't only performing a character, he creates all the images with the support of the technicians. He creates all the images himself. So he creates his own environment at the same time. So he has a double responsibility to generate and if we talk in colors, to paint the environment he performs within. And that was something where I help during the rehearsals, because of course Dirk cannot always see what's happening around him, but that's also sometimes the support of a director in helping an actor finding new tools to express not only a personage, but also to find a way that he can paint on stage, and that he can find the essence not only of an individual, but the essence of the novel we start from. And that's the same with music, that's the same in relation with the lights, with all the disciplines that come together in one show.
Sì, e questo mi dà già molte risposte rispetto ad altri temi che volevo affrontare, come appunto l'uso della tecnologia, la funzione del video. E abbiamo già un paio di domande prenotate. E l'ultimo argomento che volevo affrontare è proprio la trilogia sul potere, no? Cioè, qual è la dialettica possibile tra vita e politica, e qual è il ruolo del teatro? Cosa può fare il teatro in questa dialettica?
I think you have to be idealistic when you are in theater. You have to believe that you help people to develop a better world. At this moment, politically, things are changing rapidly in Europe. I think the artist has a responsibility, not only making wonderful performances that people can feel comfortable. That's important, but it would be a shame if we only focus on that. So I think, like now with Toneelhuis, as a city company, when you're called a city company, you have a responsibility towards the city and towards, like, because we travel a lot in Europe, towards Europe. Therefore, the trilogy we made about power was how an individual is as responsible as a group to be able to change and to come up for your beliefs. In Antwerp, now the biggest party is the biggest party was an extreme right party. So when we started the trilogy of power, Vlaams Belang, which is a fascist party, at that moment there were elections going on. It was our responsibility to fight against those thoughts. And I don't think now the situation in Antwerp is much better. And you see all over Europe that the way how like the parties, the extreme fascist or racistical parties, they don't survive, but all the thoughts are now slowly in the other parties taken over because they want those people who voted for those, and it's becoming very, very dangerous. So yes, I think it's important now at this moment that political issues are being brought in the performances that, for instance, Toneelhuis brings. That's not the only thing, because theater is a slow medium, and let's cherish the fact that it's a slow medium. That, but you preach for your own people. That's a good thing. That's also a weakness. People come to your work. They choose already that they want to listen to you. It's not like in television where you can attack. So you have to see what you tell to the people. You don't have to convince already. And therefore, I think that's directing me in a certain way. In my performances, at the same time, our company is, maybe I should tell very quickly, it's symbolically, it's a miniature town. I'm the head of a company. At the same time, there are 7 artists who develop their own thoughts, their own language, and they start from different disciplines. So we have 7 artists next to each other who are together Toneelhuis. I'm only one facet of that whole company. What we try we don't want to make performances together. We respect the difference between each other. The biggest importance is that we share our thoughts and that we have respect for that difference, that we eat together, and that together we create a space where differences can exist with each other. And that was for me the starting point to build up Toneelhuis in Antwerp, that we show how you can live with each other without needing to think exactly the same. So it's a house of many different languages who eats together. And by sharing those differences, we hopefully build that own miniature town that is a symbol for how the city also could develop.
Beh, mi sembra una bellissima definizione. Abbiamo sentito parlare di regista come primo spettatore, di regista come leader, di regista come creatore, ma di regista sindaco è una bellissima definizione che vorremmo approfondire sicuramente più avanti. Una domanda, prego.
Innanzitutto, l'emozione, qual è la vostra emozione di fare uno spettacolo all'interno di una struttura come le Tese? Quale sarebbe invece l'emozione di farlo in un campiello veneziano, in mezzo alla gente, perché in questo momento politico, burocratico, purtroppo il teatro in Italia è un teatro che non è qua, non è nella Biennale, è fuori dalla Biennale. Il vostro teatro ci ricorda che siamo guerrieri e siamo apolidi. Siete voi anche voi apolidi? Grazie.
Well, of course, like I said, the first 10 years, I didn't want to take a step in the theater itself, because for me it was a specific kind of people that I, as a young guy, didn't want to identify with. That changed. Although now, and then I like to refer again to Toneelhuis, is because we have 7 different artists, we don't make performances only for the stage. And I think it's important that a city company, because I know we have a Bonbonnière, a classical theater in Antwerp, which is our basis. It's a wonderful theater to make performances. At the same time, I know that it makes a certain kind of people afraid to enter, that they say, this might be not for me. This is, it scares them to enter those spaces. Therefore, I think what is very important, I realize if there's one thing you can blame the artists of the last 30 years is, I think that there's been wonderful work being made. I think what we weren't enough concerned with is how to communicate that work towards the audience. So not only, I used to say also, the work has to stand for itself. I start to doubt that now. I think you can find a larger audience by helping them introducing specific elements and also, like what's happening today, ventilate the experience afterwards and give it different thoughts. So that's about what's happening on stage. I think, and that's what my company tries to develop, the before and the after becomes much, much more important, finding a wider audience. That's one thing. On the other hand, like I was doing performances in cellars, on squares in the very beginning, I look for those artists today who want to do the same. I have to apologize for myself that I don't do that anymore. Maybe in the near future that might happen, but I think it's very important that for instance in Antwerp, and then I take the example of Benjamin Verdonk, who is an artist who did the whole year performances that confronts people on the street with art. And I think that's as important. And it's those different artists together that hopefully generate an interaction with audiences. And I think that's very important to deal with, that people who like my work go to a dance performance, that people from dance say, let's try and see what's happening tomorrow in that same space. That's, I think, very important to broaden that mind. And I think a city company who has that space needs to stimulate those elements. I don't know whether that was an answer to all the ideas you pronounced.
Un'altra domanda, Martina Melandri della redazione della Tempesta.
Allora, come ci ha appena descritto, il vostro teatro è una casa per linguaggi diversi e volevo sapere come portate questa condivisione nella vostra esperienza quando lavorate all'estero e se il vostro processo di creazione e di lavoro cambia quando siete all'estero, quando lavorate all'estero.
Didn't get it.
Okay.
Is there the question for me is?
No, there are two questions. There's one question, and there's how the performance changes with touring.
The performance changes with touring, but also with aging, getting older. I now do it for 10 years, and getting old and gray and thinking in a more silent way about things than I used to do before is an influence, but in general I could say if we play in Venice or in New York or in Antwerp or in Istanbul, and this is for me is a positive thing, I didn't really notice big differences all over the world. The people all over the world are in fact moved with the same or about the same contents in the play. People are really shocked by the same thing, and this was for me a encouraging analysis that wherever you play, a lot of people say that all those races, all those nationalities are so different, which is on one hand true, but at the same time we are so much the same, and we are so much sad about the same things and hoping for the same things to happen. And yeah, that's it.
But on the other hand, I think Dirk performs this in 4 different languages. And I think the language of the performance gives the performance a different touch, a different rhythm, a different color. So it's for me it was very fascinating to see how the color of a language can direct also an actor in finding those specific qualities in the text. So in that sense, the performance changes in every culture we were performing.
Yes, and I think there was also a question about the workshop. We're now in the second day of 4 days, and if I want to reach something, which is also not a very, it's a restrictive word to reach something. I'm a person who always is more like when you have found something, you should forget it immediately. When you found something, you did not look good for that something. You didn't look good for it. You shouldn't reduce your life to what you have found. And a language is, for example, something that maybe you haven't found because you're born with it. You got your mother language, but you got also other languages. So I asked the people from the workshop to learn some lines from our show, first into the mother language, in which they feel more safe, but also in a language that they don't control so much. And then hopefully we discover that this maybe weakness around this language, which is not yours, or a member of the workshop who said, a participant, that she doesn't feel so intelligent in a foreign language than in her own language, is not really always the case, that there's more silence in a different language. In a language that is not your own language, you feel more the silence behind the words. And I think taking care of this language, which is not your own language, shows sometimes more than your own language. You're more looking for words, you're more doubting about the word that you choose. And this also helps us, which I also said to the people from the workshop. I'm also convinced, and I want to reach that almost every performance, that every beautiful, even when the text is really beautiful, even in your own mother language, the text only covers maximum 15% of what you want to express. So even if it's a good novel, like in this case, it's a gift to play this text. Also now, it's very difficult to express what I want to say. When you're in love with somebody, when you lost a person you love, when you're very sad, language can only cover maximum 15% or 20% what you feel. And every text that you pronounce, even if it's written by Shakespeare or by Jeroen Brouwers in this case, is maximum 15% of what it really wants to say. That's why actors are in general jealous of musicians. They don't have the words, and they also don't need the words. I'm an artist of words, but at the same time, like Guy says, I love the word, I love the words too, I love language, but at the same time, it's not enough. And I think that every actor or every performance is only interesting and intriguing when the public becomes very curious for this 80% that the language itself is not talking about. That you see this woman, this actress, and that you look at her and that you really think, oh, it's beautiful, but the more it grows, that you get more, what is she now not talking about? What is that language cannot grab? What is that language cannot achieve? And that's why I hope to share with the people from the workshop that sometimes playing in a different language, of which normally you're a bit scared of, is maybe not something to be scared of, but something that helps you to, again, pay more attention in the exact way of expressing something. And then it's sometimes very surprising when after playing like for years in a foreign language, next year we go and play back in Antwerp again, then it's surprising how you pay again a lot of attention to your own mother language. That a mother language, you take it for granted. And a foreign language, you don't take it for granted. And I like the attitude of not taking the things for granted and being unsure about that.
And about the other question, our company, it's important for our company to travel. Of course, every performance we make finds its necessity in our city. That's our basis, that's where the themes rise out of. At the same time, at 50% of our performances, we perform 150 performances in Antwerp, 150 performances abroad. That's for us a perfect balance between like the performances in Antwerp. It's a voyage you develop throughout the performances with an audience. That's a voyage you try to share. That's why I like to make performances not only that are separated from itself, but that you build up a voyage with your audience through performances. One development you share with each other. That's wonderful to experience that when you have a basis in a city. At the same time, by going on tour, by being confronted with completely different audiences, who they make you see different things of the same work. And that's what those experiences you hopefully bring back to the city where you create and generate performances. So for us, we try to find that balance between a house where you are at home, and at the same time feel the need to the performances who can find new audience, that you make that possible, and that those confrontations with different cultures makes you also develop the work at home. So it's some kind of balance that stimulates each other, and of course stimulates the artists with each other. Not everybody wants to travel, and they don't have to. But it's very good that those experiences one person brings along can be shared by another one. The strange thing is that because we have so different artists, they don't go to the same festivals. They don't go to the same houses. So that is very difficult for us as an organization, because we almost have to fit our organization to every artist personally. At the same time, by doing it in one house, you learn a lot from each other. Not by saying, because I'm here now, that another person of my company will come here next year. That's not the big interesting thing. It's the experience that I bring back home that can help them. A very strange thing about language is that in France, where we play a lot, 15 years ago, I made À la recherche de temps perdu, in English, Marcel Proust, but I forgot the English title, À la recherche de temps perdu. Yeah, remembrance of the things past. That's a very important French novel. So we wanted to play that in France at that moment. Everybody said at that moment, you commit suicide if you do Proust in another language. So we help you by not bringing that performance in France. So a few years later, we go a lot to Paris, to Avignon. We were asking, but shouldn't we do this performance in French? Wouldn't it help the audience? And there was only 8 years in between. At that moment, they said, please don't do that. Keep it in Flemish, because we love the sound of the Dutch language so much. So they got used to the language also in relation to the kind of acting we stand for, that they said, no, keep it the way how you made it, and we will read the subtitles. We prefer it like that. So in 10 years' time, I think a lot changed in the way of behavior of reading subtitles in the theater. Which doesn't mean that I'm very thankful for Dirk that he does this performance in 4 different languages, of course.
Io ho l'ingrato compito di chiudere questa conversazione. Ringraziamo Guy, ringraziamo Dirk. Alle 7 ci aspetta uno spettacolo al Teatro La Fenice, no? Le Bourgeois in francese. Grazie davvero. Appuntamento a domani.